Hey, what's up, guys? So I'm coming to you this morning with an update on pound for pound king Canelo Alvarez. It's the arguable pound for pound king, obviously. I don't think he's a unanimous pick for that. For me, though, his opponent selection, who he's fought and beat over the last couple years, and just overall, to me, and the fact his fluctuation in weight, moving up and down in weight and beating good fighters, and facing good fighters is why I gave him that distinction. Right behind him is Vasily Lomachenko, and number 3 is Terrence Crawford for me. Canelo, the new news on him. First off, don't expect him fighting on September 12th. We are 2.5 weeks away from September 12th. I'm actually getting married that day. That fight's just not going to... No fight is going to happen for Canelo because he hasn't even decided on an opponent. So, Mexican Independence Week, no Canelo fight. Get that, possibly in your head. When do I think he could fight? I think probably November, December area is probably what we're looking at right now. So you're only going to see him one time in 2020. What's the holdup? Well, there's good news and bad news. It looked like he possibly was going to face Callum Smith, and he was considering even Demetrius Andrade, according to Eddie Hearn, as about a week or two ago. But we didn't hear nothing about it. And then David Benavidez lost the WBC title at 168. He lost that on the scales. And Romer Angulo could not win the vacant belt. He lost to Benavidez, who couldn't regain it because he was overweight, and Angulo couldn't claim it, so the title remained vacant. People were wondering what the WBC was going to order. And then you heard Canelo, you heard Callum Smith were lobbying to be put into that mix. And Canelo got the opportunity against the mandatory number 1 contender, Avni Yildirim. And the WBC just didn't order it. Canelo requested it. Canelo wanted it. And the WBC being, corrupt as they are, they put Canelo to the front of the line. Now, not to say that Canelo's not deserving, okay? But when a guy like Canelo with his kind of name calls and says, hey, I want to fight for your title, the WBC gets right down on their knees for a guy like Canelo. They did it with Mayweather over and over and over just to get their belt. They always came up with Mayweather, and now Canelo. They come up with these bullshit titles. The diamond belts, the gold belts, the franchise titles, all these bullshit distinctions just to get these fighters on, to fight for their title. And, Canelo's the franchise champion at 160, a weight class down, and that's pretty much, I called it, that was the WBC's excuse to allowing Canelo to fight for this world title belt. So now, Canelo's, that was the announcement. And wait, for good news. But now the zone is doing what they did last year, and they are butting heads with Canelo on whether they're going to allow Avni Yildirim as an opponent. Originally, it came out about a day or two later after the Canelo Yildirim fight was announced last week that, not announced, but ordered. They came out, there was some source that said DAZN said they wouldn't approve Avni Yildirim as the next opponent. And now I'm hearing that they're talking about him as the next opponent and approving the fight. My opinion on that is I don't see what the issue is. And here's why, guys. Okay, first off, Avni Yildirim, not a complete pushover. He's had 2 significant fights and 2 losses, all right? First one, World Boxing Super Series in 2018. In the quarterfinals, the first round, he took on Chris Eubank Jr. Eubank, a top 10 middleweight. Very good fighter. And he got his ass whipped. He tried to go toe-to-toe with Eubank. Eubank knocked his ass out, I think, in the third or fourth round. So that was it. But about a little less than a year and a half later, he somehow got an opportunity to compete for the vacant WBC title against Anthony Durrell, the former champ coming in. Myself and everybody else involved felt Durrell was the clear favorite and was going to outbox him, possibly stop Yildirim, and regain the world title. It's basically a shoe-in. when they released the schedule in that matchup. And Yildirim came out and fought his ass off against Anthony Dirrell. It was a good fight, and for Yildirim, it ended on a cut that sent it to the scorecards after 10 rounds, and somehow Anthony Dirrell walked away with a split technical decision, and claimed the WBC title for a second time. Now, this fight was so controversial that the WBC ordered Avni Yildirim to fight next for the world title. The reason why that he didn't get an immediate rematch with Anthony Dirrell is because undefeated David Benavidez, who was a former champ and had been stripped of the title due to cocaine use, somehow was declared champion in recess, even though he was stripped of the title and he was suspended for 6 months. Well, again, WBC being as corrupt as they are, they declared him the champion in recess, which means he supersedes any mandatory challengers to get a first shot at a world title. With Benavidez being a big name, a bigger name than Yildirim, he got a crack at Anthony Dirrell before Yildirim, and he fought Dirrell last September and beat Dirrell by a 9th round TKO. But Avni Yildirim was guaranteed the winner of that fight, and he wanted to fight Benavidez before first half of the year. The fight wouldn't have happened because of Corona, but he also got hurt early in the year, and the fight was basically, whenever he would come back. So Benavidez was allotted an optional defense, which he just was doing against Romer Angulo, but then he came in overweight and got stripped of the title again. So now that's the backstory on Avni Yildirim and why he is where he is and in this position. Again, say what you want, he got his ass knocked out against Chris Eubank. Came back against a world-class fighter in Anthony Dirrell, top 10 guy, former 2-time champ now, very solid and established fighter. And he pretty much should have beat him last year. So, with that, he needs some slack cut his way. Even though he's not a big name, he needs some slack cut his way. The other thing that I don't understand about DAZN, because they want big name fights. Okay, let's look at a couple things here with DAZN and Canelo. First off, Canelo was willing to take a pay cut because of the coronavirus and not having any fans. And Canelo is guaranteed between, I think it's $35 and $40 million per fight now. That's big money. So Canelo willing to take a pay cut, which he is, they should be happy about that. Also, his opponents. They were struggling to find an opponent who was willing to take a pay cut. And Avni Yildirim would do that. He wouldn't care just to get Canelo in the ring and to have a world title at stake. Avni Yildirim will do that all day. You're going to have Canelo against an overmatched opponent. Yes. With a guy with not that big a name. Yes, but who cares? During the coronavirus, they should be happy that the pound-for-pound king and the number one money maker in the sport wants to fight at all, because he doesn't have to if he doesn't want to. He's under contract, and another thing, he's under contract for 11 fucking fights, and he's only 3 fights into that contract. And in those 3 fights, now the first one, he fought Rocky Fielding, okay? That was approved by DAZN very early on, though. In order to get a second fight in 2018 and to get him kicked off on their network that they just started in September of 2018, they didn't care who Canelo fought on the first fight of that contract. Threw him in right away. Then Canelo goes and fights Danny Jacobs in May of last year. Danny Jacobs is a big name. A good, solid name. Unification, middleweight world title fight, 3 belts on the line. Canelo got a nice performance and a nice win there. One of the best of his career. And then in November of last year, faced off against Sergey Kovalev, a Hall of Fame former 3-time world champion. Why is this a problem? Why is this a big deal? I didn't understand it. So, I'm pretty pissed that DAZN is giving Canelo shit on who he's gonna fight. He's not gonna be able to get a big name fighter every time out. And they also have the luxury of knowing that he's probably gonna fight Triple G next year in a 3rd fight. Triple G wanted to fight him, but he wanted to get another fight in first. I don't see a problem with that. And I don't see the holdup with DAZN. You're going to catch more flies with honey. Let Canelo get his 4th fight of an 11-fight contract. You still have another fucking 7 fights And hopefully, going into next year, he's probably not going to want to fight again until May of next year. Hopefully by next year, you got a crowd again. And you can generate all that money, and I'm pretty sure Canelo is going to want to deliver. You know, he doesn't want his network losing money. You know, I think Floyd Mayweather showed us this when he competed, you know, and had that Showtime contract for 6 fights that he signed. You know, he was guaranteed 32 mil baseline, and he was making more than that too, but he was guaranteed that as his base salary for every fight. And when he fought a lesser guy, you know, not a lesser guy in terms of what he accomplished, like a Robert Guerrero. When he fought Robert Guerrero, not a lot of people mainstream knew Robert Guerrero. He whipped his ass in, and Showtime lost money. So what does he do in his next fight? He went and took on Canelo, I believe, in his next fight after that. You know, he was willing to do that for his network when pushed. So I don't understand why after 2 back-to-back top-end opponents that Canelo fought, why DAZN wouldn't have their fighters back, allow him to go capture this world title, because it's just going to set up bigger fights later. And the other thing is, Canelo wants the big fights. He wants to fight the best. You know, Canelo is not cherry-picking opponents here. He's not. I'm sorry. A lot of people can say he is, but he's not. Danny Jacobs was the number 3 middleweight in the world when they fought last year, behind him and Triple G. And he had a world title. You know, what's his name? Kovalev was the number 1. He was number 1 at the time that he fought. Number 1, number 2 light heavyweight in the world when Canelo moved up. Yeah. Kovalev had 10 weeks off in between fights after a tough fight in August. Yeah, but Canelo didn't fuck with the weight like Mayweather used to and come in, make Kovalev cut weight. He fought him straight up, and he knocked his ass out, you know? So people need to really get off Canelo's ass about cherry picking and all that shit, you know? He's going to fight who he's going to fight, and he's going to deliver big fights because Canelo wants to leave his legacy. He wants to max out his dollar amount and leave a legacy and fight the best fighters. But in an 11-fight contract during the coronavirus, why can't he be a little picky here? He hasn't fought in what? By the time he gets back in the ring, it's going to be a year, possibly over a year, if he still fights this year. I mean, who cares? Let him fight Yildirim. Let him win another world title. And then he's going to give you bigger fights later. I mean, it's just, to me, you know, it makes sense long term. Maybe DAZN's hurting. Maybe that's why they're doing what they're doing. You know, I get that too. But when you sign a guy for a huge contract like this, you should factor in other things, and you can't force a guy to fight who he doesn't want to fight or who he possibly can't get in the ring, you know, because they won't take less money. You can't force that, because then what you end up with is this guy not fighting at all. And I'd rather have him fighting than not fighting. So that's just my take on it. I'm hoping they come to an agreement soon and we get Canelo signed up for a showdown in November, possibly December. You know, I'm thinking December would be better for Canelo probably, and overall with the schedule. And yeah, hopefully that pans out for everybody. All right, guys, that's it. That's the Canelo update. I hope you guys enjoyed it. True Boxing, been hit with the truth.